let's go back to that poll. Trump with a 9-point lead over President Biden in that poll, and whatever caveats, whether that is an outlier, that's a tough one to spin.
It is a tough one to spin, but to be sure, Biden loyalists are trying to spin it. Now, the latest Washington Post ABC News poll shows Biden trailing Donald Trump by a lot. Now, every other poll that we've talked about on the show, including the average of polls, has shown that Biden and Trump are neck and neck. However, according to this latest Washington Post ABC poll, the situation's a little different. So let's get into the details of what we found before we get to some of the public meltdowns over the poll. Now, the Post ABC poll shows Biden trailing Trump by 10 percentage points at this early stage in the election, although the sizable margin of Trump's lead in this survey is significantly at odds with other public polls that show the general election contest a virtual dead heat. The difference between this poll and others, as well as the unusual makeup of Trump's and Biden's coalitions in this survey, suggests it is probably an outlier. So I read you that excerpt from the Washington Post's reporting on this because they also acknowledge that this is an outlier without really getting into the potential mishaps with the methodology or anything like that. So I would say if you ever take any one specific poll too seriously, you probably shouldn't. You should probably take it with a grain of salt and instead take a look at the average of polling. But with that said, according to this poll, Trump is leading Biden 52-42.
Okay, guys, it's unrecoverable. So let me explain. Do I put all my eggs in this one poll? Of course not, right? But you look at the average of polls and he's trailing Trump by more than 1 point now. Now 1 point is way different than 10 points. So I don't want people to like quote unquote panic over this one poll that's 10 points. And everyone in media is telling you the same thing. Don't ignore this poll, we hate this poll, don't ignore it. But do not ignore it because it's telling you things are going in this direction, right? Maybe they're not going in nearly as extreme as this poll is, but every poll shows the same direction. And now, by the way, if the next poll comes in at not trailing by 1, but trailing by 2 or 3, then you're gonna get to see that this poll is, yes, an outlier, but was directionally correct. It doesn't matter, you already see that now. Every poll is going the same direction against Biden and for Trump. The for Trump part is even more problematic and more worrisome. But against Biden, the jury's in, guys. It's unrecoverable. So you have to understand this. And no one is telling you this. If you ask people, they go, well, yeah, that's true, but they never tell you. Biden won the election by 4.5 points in the popular vote and barely squeaked by in an electoral college victory. That means whether it's Biden or anyone else, it doesn't matter. The Democrat has to win the election by bare minimum 4.5 points, but I wouldn't want to risk democracy on a 50-50 crapshoot. You got to win by 5 in order to have even a tiniest half a point, bump as a safety zone, right? So instead of winning by 5, he's losing by at least 1, and so some people will make the facetious, well, not facetious, but like the argument that to me is misleading. They'll say, well, Obama at some point had a low approval rating. No, you look at and this is the exact criticism of this poll, but they won't be consistent, and we will. When you looked at the average of polls for Obama, no, he was never this bad in the average of polls. That's point 1. And directionally, he was going up, whereas directionally, Biden is going down. There's giant differences. I'm telling you right now, you could choose not to believe it. You could choose to believe in an alternate reality. And I know a lot of people are mad at me. Like our petition, it's doing mediocre, tyt.com/dropout. It would have to get to like 1 million for people to go, oh my God, this is a big phenomenon, right? But it's nowhere near there. And I think even core progressives are worried, super worried. But what if we criticize Biden and then he loses? But guys, the iceberg's right there. And it doesn't matter if you get mad at me or not. At this point, I'm telling you, Bush was unrecoverable, and I said so, and I was right about his poll numbers. When Obama dipped, I said that's totally recoverable, and I was right about that. This guy's gonna lose, it's a near guarantee. And Anna's gonna give you some of the details here, and the details are more damning. He's not gonna turn it around. We're gonna run straight into that iceberg unless he drops out.
Yeah, to me, the most worrying part of this poll wasn't Trump's giant lead on Biden. It was how American voters are feeling on very specific issues and how, look, to be honest with you, I think that Biden is undeserving of some of these low marks, and I think it has to do with the fact that optically speaking, he doesn't look great. But if you look at some of the accomplishments of his administration, I think it's wrong to downplay them. So a 15% minimum corporate tax rate is a big deal. That is excellent. A 1% tax on stock buybacks, that's also excellent. His NLRB has been excellent. Like, I feel I'm now kind of in the territory of feeling like the hatred toward Biden is a little overplayed. But despite how you feel about how he has performed during his first term, what really matters at the end of the day is whether or not he can beat Trump. And so in regard to his ability of beating Trump, I side with you, Cenk, in being very concerned. But I also, at the same time, have a little bit of a problem with people kind of downplaying his accomplishments, because there have been some.
No, you know who's the #1 guy downplaying his accomplishment? And that's an even bigger problem than he has other than optics, is Joe Biden himself. So look, guys, I'm not trying to get a progressive in the race. And if you're a progressive and you thought I was gonna do a secret plan and we're gonna launch something from a Trojan horse, I don't have it. I don't have that secret plan. I'm saying anybody but Biden. And if you say, but like Anna says, but Biden's record's kind of interesting. He's way better than a normal Democrat. You know, I thought he got 15% of his agenda done. Recently, I moved that up to 20%. And you know, based on what Anna's saying, the stuff that we've covered recently, and he doubled down on student debt relief, I could even move it to 25%, which for a Democrat's pretty good.
Really good.
Right? I mean, it's a really low bar, but hey, he's clearing it by decent. But it isn't about that, guys. It isn't about whether you love him or don't love him. The question is he going to win or not?
Right.
Because if he doesn't win, we have Trump, and Trump is threatening to literally execute generals he doesn't like. Literally, that's later in the show. With our democracy on the line, we can't be like, well, oh gosh, we like Joe Biden, so let's just lose democracy because we kind of like the old feller. That's not how it works. And so last thing for now is, Biden's got, if you think Biden's okay, then you should be furious with Biden for not making his case. Run a goddamn campaign.
I know.
Tell him how great you are and how terrible Trump is. He's in a goddamn basement. He doesn't want to run the campaign. He just wants a second term. It's incredibly selfish.
Look, I think you're wrong in that it's not that he doesn't want to run the campaign. It's just that Biden doesn't have, I never in a million years thought I would say this, but he doesn't have some of the important campaigning skills that Trump has. Look, Trump is charismatic, Trump is energetic, right? Regardless of how you feel about him, you have to keep in mind that elections for a lot of voters comes down to optics and vibes. And so when you see Biden looking lost on the stage, not knowing where to go, when you see Biden having difficulty, doing simple things like pronouncing the names of individuals he chose for his own cabinet, or when he was at the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and referred to it as the Congressional Black Caucus because he forgot where he was. Those are issues, and I think that those issues while he's campaigning start to pile on or pile up, and it does hurt him. Now, with that said, I want to note that there was another poll released over the weekend where the results were a little different. So NBC News put out its own poll over the weekend, which showed that Trump and Biden were tied at 46% each. Now, in regard to the Washington Post ABC News poll, of course, Trump celebrated, posting the results on Truth Social to basically brag about how well he did. Now, going back to some of the other details of the poll, those who say they did not vote in 2020 account for about 15% of the overall sample of registered voters, and they favor Trump over Biden by 63% to 27%. Among those who voted in 2020, Trump is at 50%, Biden at 45%. So that is extremely concerning, to say the least. Now, let's take a look at a comparison of polls to just really drive home the point that this Washington Post ABC poll is in fact an outlier. You can see that the Fox News poll, Quinnipiac, CNN, Wall Street Journal, all of them pretty much have Biden and Trump in a dead heat, but it is different with the Washington Post ABC poll. Now, Democratic voters have been clear in noting that they want someone else. The problem is they don't know who. So according to this poll, 3 in 5 Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents say they would prefer a nominee other than the president. But Biden's advisors have argued that he is the strongest Democrat for 2024, and those who wish for someone else share no consensus on who that should be, with 8% naming Vice President Harris, 8% naming Senator Bernie Sanders, and 20% saying they prefer just someone else. And that's where I'm a little stuck, because I don't know who to propose as a replacement for Biden in this election.
So that's the thing that drives me the craziest. So they say, well, there's no other person. Well, what do you mean? There's thousands of Democrats in the country. Well, no one can beat the most unpopular politician of all time, Donald Trump. That's absurd. That's damning the Democratic Party. So, okay, here, I'll name names. They're like, oh, you can't name any names. Of course I can. Here, Andy Beshear, governor of Kentucky, easy. Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, easy. How did Beshear win in Kentucky? He's a Democrat. Josh Harris is in a critical swing state of Pennsylvania and ran a really strong campaign and beat a Trump clone with a stick, kicked his ass, okay? So those are two guys who have a very good chance of beating Donald Trump. Anybody has a really good chance of beating Donald Trump, except Joe Biden. So the things that Anna just read you from his campaign are tricks. They won't let anybody run, and they tell all the Democrats, if you run, we will end you in the Democratic Party. And then they go in the media and go, put on a smiley face and go, see, there's no one else running, so you have no other options. I mean, oh yeah, no one else can win. No, wait, there's no evidence for that. We have overwhelming evidence that Joe Biden is in deep, deep trouble. Maybe he swerves away from the iceberg, but it would take enormous effort. And he's not showing any of that effort. So the one piece of evidence we have is that Biden is very likely to lose to Trump. Is Andy Beshear likely to lose to Trump? No. Shapiro, no. I can name you 24 other Democrats that would have an excellent chance of beating him. But we're in this like unsolvable riddle where the media says, if you run against Biden, we will eviscerate you and say that you're causing Trump to win. They're saying it about me right now. I'm not running. I'm just saying someone else should run. And they're already saying I'm costing Biden the victory.
Okay, let's pause for a second. I just want anyone who believes in that nonsense. The reason why Cenk is so animated about this is because he wants to prevent Trump from winning. And he sees Biden running as a threat to the country because the chances of Trump beating Biden honestly seem more and more likely with every poll that comes out. And again, don't take any individual poll as the end all be all, but you look at the average of polls and it still doesn't look good for Biden.
My hair's on fire because he's now losing among the young. How could a Democratic nominee lose under 35-year-olds? They say this poll says that Trump's winning that demographic by 20 points. Forget 20 points. It doesn't matter. Even if they were tied, Biden would have 0% chance of winning. He has to win the young by a giant number.
He does.
And he definitely is not doing that right now. So I feel like I'm the only guy sitting on the deck of the Titanic, not worrying about rearranging the chairs, but going, there's a freaking iceberg right there, and I don't care how mad you get at me. Get as mad as you want at me, but there's a goddamn iceberg and we're gonna run right into it, and then we're gonna have a fascist Donald Trump running this country. So if Democrats don't want to turn around, history will judge you super harshly. They'll turn around, they'll see these numbers in history and say, how did they not run someone else? Oh, because they wanted to obey Biden. Okay, I've got one last analogy, but give them more numbers.
The other thing I wanted to mention, because it goes beyond Biden's lack of public speaking skills and charisma, it's also what Americans are experiencing with the economy. Now look, there are some positive metrics you can point to in regard to the economy, including the fact that the employment rate continues to be remarkably low. However, if you take a look at what people are paying for gas at the gas pump, even though Biden is not responsible for that, even though the high gas prices is related to the international market and the OPEC plus cartel essentially manipulating, the production of fossil fuels, doesn't matter. People are gonna blame the president for what they're experiencing at the gas pump. The cost of food is still incredibly high. So when Americans notice that their dollar is really not stretching as much as it used to, at a time when the economy wasn't really anything to write home about, they're going to blame the president. And I think that those numbers are pretty clear from this poll. So let's actually take a look at that. Let's go to graphic 9 here. Americans hold negative views of several aspects of the United States economy. Only 25% say that the state of the nation's economy is good. 74% say not so good or poor. Even when it comes to the low unemployment rate, they're not really giving Biden high marks for that. Only 35% say that.
He never brags about it. He never says it. They don't even know. 74% are saying that the economy is going in the wrong direction. It doesn't matter if the incumbent is a Republican, Democrat, nothing matters. If 74% think the economy is going in the wrong direction, that incumbent is a guaranteed loss. I've never seen anyone recover from a number that bad. So it's not possible, guys. But okay, hey, but we don't want to be impolite to Joe Biden.
Now, Larry Sabato, who is the publisher of Sabato's Crystal Ball,
which is hilarious.
I'm not too familiar with it, but nonetheless, he was outraged over the publication of this poll. So I want to give you both his statement and Nate Cohn's statement over at the New York Times. So Larry Sabato says, ignore the Washington Post ABC poll. It's a ridiculous outlier. Trump up 10 over Biden, laughable. My question, how could you even publish a poll so absurd on its face? Will be a lingering embarrassment for you. So Cenk, any thoughts on that tweet?
Yeah, so Sabato is one of the most respected pollsters in Washington, D.C. But brother, you know what's really embarrassing? When you tell people not to worry about polls in general, when in reality Biden is losing and you know he has to win by 5. You know that, right, Sabato? I mean, that would be deeply embarrassing if you didn't know that. And you should be telling people the objective reality that Biden is very, very far behind. Instead, what's he out there doing? What every Democrat does, what everybody in mainstream media does. I don't worry about this poll. They shouldn't even publish it. If there's a poll that's that bad against Biden, you shouldn't even publish it. What do you mean you shouldn't even publish it? It's a poll. It's an outlier poll. We all acknowledge it's an outlier poll. But are you explaining to people how deep the gravity of the problem is for Joe Biden? It doesn't look like it. It looks like you're covering it up. So when Biden gets annihilated, you're going to be the one deeply embarrassed because like everyone else, and by the way, it's not like you didn't do this before. All these same pollsters during Hillary Clinton was like, oh, don't worry about anything. Hillary's definitely gonna win. Hillary's definitely gonna win. We love Hillary Clinton, so forget that objective reality, okay? We're going with the people we like. So if a poll doesn't agree with us, we just toss it out. We don't even put it in the average. We just toss it out. What kind of weirdo censorship is that from a guy who's supposed to deal in numbers?
There's a lot of stuff going on though that I don't understand. So for instance, there's a higher percentage of voters who feel that Biden should be held accountable in the impeachment inquiry, right?
Yeah,
compared to Trump and the literal 4 indictments he's facing in 4 different jurisdictions, which there's some disconnect. There really is, because again, with the Biden impeachment inquiry, there's no evidence. You literally have one of the most far-right Republicans in the House Freedom Caucus, Congressman Buck, saying, the evidence ain't there, we should not pursue this. Even JD Vance in the Senate said, this is gonna backfire on us, guys. We don't have the evidence, let's not go forward with an impeachment when we don't have the evidence. But nonetheless, you look at this poll and a higher percentage of people who responded to the poll believe that Biden should be held accountable than individuals who feel that Trump should be held accountable.
So look, guys, we prove 1,000 times over that when we have a perspective, we share it with you, but we don't have an agenda when it comes to numbers. So in this case, I do think that this is an outlier. I don't want you to get mistaken, right? Because why? Because look at that number. It's too far to the right wing. They must be oversampling the right. But it's directionally going in the wrong direction as every other poll is, as I explained earlier. But when you get to those numbers that Ana just explained to you, it makes me super worried because number one, Ana's right, it's not true. Okay, so Joe, and no one defends Joe Biden on things that are accurate better than we do. And that's exactly the problem with the Biden campaign. So when we say, for example, if you look at Hunter Biden's laptop, there's clear evidence in there that says, I cannot influence my dad. Now, how many times have you heard that from the White House? How many times has Karine Jean-Pierre said it? How many times has Joe Biden said it? How many times have they made MSNBC say it? And keep it real, there's a direct pipeline to MSNBC, right?
Right.
They don't even defend themselves. So as I looked at that, I thought, they're misleading good people. It's not just MAGA. Independents and even some Democrats think that maybe Joe Biden did have a connection with Hunter Biden because Hunter Biden is so obviously a con man, a scammer, right?
Right.
And when Biden seems like he's defending his son and he doesn't put out the evidence that he's innocent, people mistakenly think he's more guilty than Trump. It doesn't get any more incompetent than this.
Biden is playing by old rules. He wants to make it abundantly clear that he is not in any way trying to influence any kind of investigation, which is why he doesn't defend himself. But I think it's now becoming a liability, and he should maybe reconsider.
Enormous liability.
Yeah, and I want to give you the exact numbers since I referenced them. So according to this poll, 58% of Americans say Biden is being held accountable through an impeachment inquiry under the law like any other president, while only 32% say he's being unfairly victimized by political opponents. Now, when it came to Trump, the numbers were lower. Let me look for those. I actually lost them right now, but it's just shocking to me that a clear majority of the poll respondents feel that Biden is engaged in some wrongdoing and should be held accountable for it through impeachment proceedings.
When even the Republicans don't think they have any evidence. God, they're so much better at marketing. But guys, it's negligence for Biden to say, well, I'm innocent and people should figure it out on their own. And so I'm not really gonna campaign. I'm not gonna defend myself. I'm not gonna attack the Republicans. And but me. I want 2 terms, not 1 term. I don't want my legacy tarnished. So I'm just gonna sit here like on my ass, not even defend myself, and give the misleading impression that I'm more corrupt than Donald Trump.
Right.
You're hurting the Democratic Party. You're hurting the voters. You're hurting the country. Please, tyt.com/dropout. You gotta drop out. If you don't, everyone else, no one else in the Democratic Party has courage to challenge you, right?
Right. Now, just to give you the numbers for Trump, as I mentioned earlier, 58% of Americans say that Biden is being held accountable through the impeachment investigation. When it comes to Trump and his 91 felony counts in 4 jurisdictions, only 53% of Americans say he's being held accountable, and 40% say that he's being unfairly victimized.
Okay, so look. Last 2 analogies here. One is if Paul Revere was a Democrat, the other Democratic Party leaders would shoot him. And then when Trump actually comes and wins and the fascists take over, they would blame Paul Revere, okay? They would say, if he just didn't warn us, then we would have beat the British. So, okay, but most importantly, this is the analogy that I want you to think about. We told you the story about the South Korean pilots. The South Korean airlines crashing more often than any other airlines. They couldn't figure out why. The engine's great, the planes are great, technology is great. They eventually figured out that because of the culture of politeness, the co-pilot would not tell the pilot when they were about to run into a mountain. And when they checked the black boxes, they found that phenomenon over and over again, where the co-pilot is gently pointing out, perhaps there might be a large rock formation ahead, but I don't want to bother you and I don't want to be impolite. And literally everyone on board would die because they were overly polite to the pilot. I'm not going to make that mistake. And I'm okay with others being very angry with me. I am not going to run into that mountain willingly. I'm telling you right now, we got to pull up. We got to pull up because we're about to hit that mountain and this democracy is going to die on board. Thanks for watching the video, guys. We also love it if you hit the join button below because that makes you a member, and members allow us to be independent, honest. We can be as progressive as we want, no corporate media influence, and that's all because of you guys. We love doing the show with our members. Hit the join button, become one of the Young Turks.